We'll go ahead and start this meeting tonight. Thank you all for coming. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes held from the October 8th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Thank you. Motion moved second. All in favor? Thank you. Next one is to introduce our new police officer to the town of Oakland.
I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Adam Surois. Adam comes to us from the city of Waterville with 14 years of experience. He's going to be our new school resource officer. I personally know Adam, and I know that he's going to make us a good asset to the town of Oakland. Adam, this is our town council. This is Chairman Mike Perkins,
Hi.
Mr. Dana Wrigley, Councilman Mark Fisher, and Byron Wrigley.
And then the most important person in town is Jan Porter.
I know.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you. And please, if any time you need any one of us, please feel free to call. We're definitely here to help you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to talk about the verbiage for talking about the unnecessary noise ordinance.
What I've done is I've taken several ordinances, and 3 of them I put together and took the 3 best of the 7 and generated or crafted an ordinance that I felt was appropriate for the town of Oakland. In this ordinance, I addressed a couple of issues with it. One of the items that I identified was, in order to make this effective, we have to have a form of measuring the noise. I'm requesting that if we go with an ordinance like this, that we buy a meter that's either both an A-weighted meter and a C-weighted meter. The A-weighted meter replicates the human hearing. C-weighted meter will replicate the bass sound. I came up with 2 numbers, 60 decibels for during the day and 50 at night. And the reason for those is because the sound's going to be measured from the complaint instead of at the source.
Do you have a cost?
It's approximately $500 in your packet. I've actually researched 2 of the meters, and the one that I felt would be the better choice would be one that could store the data so that law enforcement can utilize it in their case reports.
Okay.
I'll get Chief Tracy here too to speak on this. Is there any questions?
Go ahead, Dave.
Do you know what any other towns are using for a meter for this, Gary?
They're using both the A and C weighted meters. It's a combination of the 2 from the research that I've found. And some of the older ordinances don't have the decimals included in their ordinance. But the newer ones, they're finding that the district attorney's office is requiring some form of measurement to find out where the noise is. The problem is, you have to define when sound actually becomes noise. And it's such a controversial situation that you have to be able to put some form of measurement on that to make it effective with the district attorney's office.
Mona?
I'm sorry, I just had a chance to look at this today, so it all came about quickly for me. We have, I was one of the people on the committee for land use ordinance 10 years ago, and at that time we talked about changes in the ambient noise, and I'm respect what you did, and I'm not saying that, I'm not saying we should do something different, but I think it would be nice at some point if they were measured in a similar way, either by the change in ambient noise, or perhaps with the land use ordinance we should change that to a specific number. But I think it's a little confusing to have 2 types of measurements, but perhaps not. But I just encourage the council to review that and maybe look at that at some time. I don't know.
Thank you. John?
Well, my real concern is that 60 dBA from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. is going to cause us all to be breaking the law. Because that says I can't really run my lawnmower, I can't run my generator, I can't run my compressor. Can't do anything outside, basically.
And snow blowers.
Snow blowers, you know. I have a problem with the daytime. Nighttime, I don't have a problem with it.
A snow blower don't make that much noise. That shouldn't even count. Generator shouldn't count either.
Excuse me, they do, they
Oh,
run
yeah,
it
but-
greater than 60 dBA.
But you know what, this is,
You don't
this
get
is-
that
this
much
is
noise
just a
out there.
fact-finding thing, and we're trying to help, we're trying to do as much as we can to, you know, so this is really gathering information and trying to help, as John puts his
He
hand
can't
up,
hear
because
anyway.
because he can't
You
hear.
gotta speak up, you gotta be over 100.
I'm sorry, Bill, what?
Well, that's the truth, that's it, but.
So thank you for the input. This is all good input because we need to find a happy medium that we can make something because like out on Don's Road, out on the McGraw Pond Road, they have a logging crew that's just really disturbing the peace, so we can at least, you know, put a platform down, work off that, so.
My concern is that the police won't have enough time to take care of these
Yep.
concerns during the day.
And I may be confusing ordinances, but most of them, and I think ours, the one you're putting out as a template to work from, doesn't it have exemptions for those type of things, snow removal, generators?
I didn't, yes, it does have one in there for generators. I didn't specifically say anything about snowboards in there.
I'm just thinking plowing, for example, plowing could be making a ton of noise, but obviously we're not gonna exclude them in a 6 AM
Right.
ban.
Right.
And I guess that's, like Mike's saying, as we get ideas, we throw them out, we'll make note of them, but, you know, I think we do have to have both the exemptions and, different classifications.
Right.
You can make this quite extensive. The list can just keep going.
Or
and
easy.
going. And,
This could be open up like a can of worms. I mean, you gotta take a look at the time period that this noise is going on. If it's snow removal or anything like that, even your plow trucks going by in the road wake people up. And they're not going to, it's gotta be common sense when you
Right.
come right down to it. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole as far as making an ordinance on this. You guys gotta take the things one at a time and people will get over most of it, but if it's a period of time that is going on and on, that's a whole different situation. You address that one at a time. But to put an ordinance on noise, it's gonna be
Yep.
time consuming for the police department.
In other words, you're telling me the country club can't start at 5 o'clock in the morning and start mowing?
Didn't say that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build a platform to work off that we can use some common sense. I know
Yeah.
that's a strange word to a lot of people nowadays, but common sense, okay? So that's what we're trying to do, is build a platform so we can work off that. And then we'll take in and make an ordinance that we can protect our citizens in the town with some common sense. Now, if a guy's out there snow blowing because he goes to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, he's kinda gotta do it. We're not gonna call chief, hey, look, that guy's snow blowing. We can't let him do that, cause I don't want him going to work. Well, that's
But the-
foolishness.
But the next door neighbor could call it, and then they'll have to respond to it.
If he's snow blowing, I hope the police officer has some common sense, says, hey, can I help you
I-
out shovel the end of the driveway?
I
We can do the
understand
what
that.
ifs until the cows
I
come home.
understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that you're
Right.
gonna have the police officers so darn busy trying to chase down things. I mean, I got a neighbor up there beside me that police had to deal with for a considerable period of time
Right.
for his complaints that weren't even realistic. And,
So,
you know, and this just gives it more flavor.
Ramon,
The other thing that, we hear the trains behind us, you know, down, and so that, we don't have control of that.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's real loud, but, for some people it might be, you know, it's all a relative thing, so we might wanna take that into consideration too.
Right.
Gary,
Well, it's
do
usually
these
when they're
other-
cooking and
other
hooking, I
ordinances have any exceptions in them for, like during the spring, I know a lot of loggers will start really early when the frost is in the road, cause they wanna get a load of wood hauled before the roads start
right,
weakening.
right.
And I didn't know if any, I know
There's
you looked at a
nothing-
lot of ordinances, I was wondering if any of them had exceptions for, and I know a certain well driller that sometimes in the summer when it's gonna be 100 degrees, he'll start at 3 o'clock in the morning so he can get done before the machinery gets too hot.
There's nothing that I've seen that addresses the posted roads and traveling at night. The way this ordinance is crafted, if somebody complains on the truck running at 3 o'clock in the morning and he's using his Jake brake, then we're gonna have to address it, or we could address it. One of the calls, I got a call from Mike Rosno this afternoon, and he's concerned about this ordinance because of coming down over High Street. And he's afraid that using his Jake brake on his truck is gonna be at some point addressed and negatively. And he feels that this would be something that wouldn't work for him. And he wanted me to bring this up to you guys, so, when we talk about it tonight.
I travel around the state quite a bit, and I see a lot of places that there's a sign right there, please do not use your Jake brake for the next half a mile, or quarter of a mile, or 500 feet, or whatever. If that Jake brake is a problem for noise, they can be very noisy, so
And that
I
sign
wonder if
would
we
work as a
don't need to
suggestion.
consider that.
Right.
There's areas that you can't use it.
To my knowledge, we haven't received any complaints on Jake brakes, have we?
None that I'm aware of.
This could open that up though. I mean, because once the residents in this town read this ordinance, and it's something that's been bothering them in the past, this could give them the ammunition they feel they need to have to shut that down. I mean, this could open up a can of worms for a multitude of utilities that we're gonna have to take into consideration before we put something like this on the books. I mean, it's, I did make note in here, one thing I did when I crafted this, on section 1, it said unreasonable noise shall be defined but not limited to. And what that did for us was that gave us a loophole out of the decimal meter. I mean, so if we ended up getting a complaint such as on McGraw Pond Road with Mr. Hopkins and the logging operation, and we didn't measure it, and we determined that it was unreasonable, and there was a multitude of complaints on that, we could probably address that issue. So I kind of left a hole in there so we didn't have to have the meter, if that's the route we chose to go with.
Mike, a few years ago, when the Haffords was in town here, didn't we discuss noise when they had their outdoor venue there a couple of times, or whether it would bother the neighbors?
Yeah.
But we never did any measurements or anything, right? I think,
No, because we've never had the device to do it, number one.
yeah.
And it was short-lived, and he was pretty good about talking to the neighbors and stuff too.
Yeah,
But-
I
But yeah, we
remember-
got a few, you're right, Dan, we got a few complaints on
I
that.
didn't think there was too many complaints. There was one lady lived really close.
Yeah, yeah, and she was pretty decent about it, really, when they talked to her. So, she was pretty reasonable.
I wondered if, before we get into this, if it would be worth, you're talking $300 for a meter.
We're actually talking more than that, Dan.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you're looking at close to $500 on these meters, because you have to have some accessories to go with it. One thing, on the one that I'm suggesting if we go with, it's going to have the machine that tests the accuracy of the meter, which that itself is $300. And then you're gonna need the adapter to charge the meter. So there's a couple of items that
I'll
are gonna
say,
have to go with.
so all the things you've highlighted, you'd have to have all three of those.
That's
Okay,
what
I
we're
thought
gonna
those were
need.
choices.
Yeah.
Would the police officer have to have special training?
Well, that's
When it
something
comes
that we're gonna
one
have to
police
explore.
officer or two police officers?
Any ordinance like this is gonna be very difficult to enforce. Number one, the DA's office does not prosecute ordinances. Police officers have to. And in order to do that, you have to go to a special class at the academy. You have to be the municipal ordinance prosecution class. You have to take. We have one person in the department that's had that class, that was me. I had it back in 1998. It's outdated, the class that I had. The way that they do that now has changed. So there are a lot of issues that we have to look at. I mean, we prosecuted one ordinance in my career, and I did it. We were fortunate with that we won independent, but it would be difficult.
As we look at the fireworks ordinance, very similar type of issue. As a matter of fact, when the committee did that, we thought we had a noise ordinance, because one of the thoughts was, well, the fireworks ordinance should be at least consistent with our noise ordinance, which didn't exist. But that's a very hard one to locate, find, and tell a person, they're off in the woods somewhere, you're not gonna find them before it's done. This might be the same type of ordinance. The biggest complaints tend to be around venues that have large bands, outings of that kind that would be above the level. I don't think too many people would complain about the snow blowers, even though it may violate the ordinance. Construction companies that come in at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning and start working, you get complaints. So the ordinance may be, even though in word it does affect everybody, I think the ones that we typically would want to make sure we've got some leverage on would be those companies, those businesses that are tremendously violating whatever ordinance we had, and it's bothering whole groups of people. So we knew in the fireworks ordinance, we weren't gonna be prosecuting or fining a lot of people. But you get the ordinance out there, you let people know what it is, and basically after the first year, I think we don't have a lot of fireworks complaints, a few, and they investigate it, they probably haven't found anybody. But I think it set the tone for people, and they know what is expected. I think this might do the same thing, and for the real blatant abusers, you'd have some teeth with the police department. If they went, right now, if you go, they say, well, what's the ordinance? Well, there is none. Oh, so what am I doing wrong? Well, you're bothering people. Well, there's no ordinance. So at least it would give them a sense of, this is the ordinance, you're disobeying it, these are the potential consequences, and we need you to stop. And hopefully they would stop. So, I guess I would look at it, common sense needs to prevail. We need to make sure that it's not obtrusive and it doesn't prevent people from doing daily chores and having generators running ice storms, but it might quell some of the other issues. We just need to work on it.
I can guarantee you, if you enforce it the way, if you put it in the way it is, everybody's gonna be complaining about fireworks, because I guarantee you fireworks are way over your threshold, because on this one here is an industrial example of noise levels. 60 decibels, which you have in there, is conversation in an average restaurant, office, background music, or an air conditioning unit at 100 feet. I can tell you right now, I'll be the first one on Huzzy Hill to start and complain about fireworks, because they're shooting fireworks up there all the time, and it's a lot more than 60 decibels.
There's a reason why I've got that like that, Harold, and
Yeah.
the reason is because we're measuring the sound from the complainants, where the complaint is generated from. It's not at the source.
Right,
So,
but
so
I'm
if we
saying
go
right
to
now,
the
they shoot
source,
fireworks way up Huzzy Hill, way up Oak Street, and it's a lot louder than 60 decibels, I can tell you that. I don't need a meter to tell you that.
And also, if I could, on that same thing they said, fireworks usually start dogs barking, and dogs barking is another problem that you get, and it's just a can of worms, I'm telling you, I'd stay away from it.
I have a question too. Say at 3 o'clock in the morning, a complaint was generated inside Mr. Hopkins' house. Would the decibel readings have to take place inside of his house?
I would, the way I've got it worded, yes. If he's in his bedroom and he's hearing a sound that's keeping him awake, then we need to check it from where he's complaining from. I think that would be the logical way of measuring it, because you're gonna have two different sounds. If you go outdoors to measure it versus in where he's actually being bothered, I think that's where it should be taken.
I'm wondering if we're gonna do something like this, if it wouldn't be worth getting the meter, if we're serious about an ordinance, is to get the meter and let the police department get a little bit familiar with it to see how this works, and maybe,
And it can be crafted differently.
what sets the alarm off, I'll try the thing a little bit, because I don't have a feeling for what 60 decibels is. If it's, I'd just turn my hearing aids off and I'd be happy, but,
My research shows that the 50 to 60 is what's being used by other residents, or other towns that have this type of ordinance. That's the number they've zeroed in on.
I wonder if it wouldn't be worth trying a meter, and, if it's not gonna be dependable for the police department to use, then maybe we're just barking up the wrong tree.
Following up with Dana, some of these communities who have them, would they loan us one for a couple of days, or a day even, just come out and try it with different things? Again, I'd like
At
to
least
see
we get
what they
some,
do.
maybe my Harley going up KMD's a little too loud.
Yeah, right.
Well, we know that, so
Maybe, I can guarantee it's greater than 60.
I mean, you talk to people,
I could certainly follow up
Can we,
with that.
why don't we take and see
if I
if
can
you
get
could
one.
take and find one, or borrow one,
Yep.
and then just see what certain things are, and other than,
That's
I
right.
really don't wanna open up a whole can of worms and get after Mr. Smith or snowballing or anything.
I can do that.
Should be a lot of
I've
them.
got selective hearing, my wife,
Does it Augusta have?
I don't hear it.
Does Augusta have one?
I guess, I didn't follow up with that.
Sure, take candy.
Former mayor.
So, no matter how-
Do you think Augusta has got one?
I think so.
Okay. How's that ordinance working for you, Senator Case?
I think all the problems that have all being raised, not to mention the fact that you've got to have the officer there at the right moment,
Yeah.
not after the fact. I don't know what we ended up doing in Augusta, but I can tell you they haven't prosecuted a single violation, at least as far as I know, for some of the reasons the officer was saying. because the district attorney won't touch it. And is the city really gonna put all the resources into doing it themselves? So I don't think that it's been enforced, at least as far as I know. You can check with Bill Vigil, though, to tell you.
Use it. Yes, sir. Go ahead, John, sorry.
Mike, you talked about, well, it has to be common sense used, and you, I think you was referring to the police officers happen to make a judgment call when they go to a call on that. But don't they have to answer every call that is made by a citizen?
Yes, but if
That's
they're gonna go
whether
answer the
it's legit or
call
not
and
legit.
they arrive on the scene, and I know 90% of our police officers, and we have some awesome police officers, they're gonna go and see you out there snow blowing your yard. It's not worth giving you a summons
I
for
understand
breaking the
that.
law. That's what I'm saying, common
they
sense.
have
They're
to-
not gonna do anything
But
like
they
that.
still have to respond, that was
Yeah,
a
of course
concern
they'll
I had.
respond.
A lot
They'll
of people
respond,
could
but
be
I'm
calling
saying,
in, you know,
at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're just gonna be chasing snow blowers.
I'm not gonna be going right driveway at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm worried about daytime.
Thank you. So what we'll do on that, we'll table this for a bit. We'll continue on working on it for a bit. So we'll table it. Roger, thank you very much for coming. Good luck. Thanks a couple weeks. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you for all your help. We'll table this for a bit. We'll see if we can find someone from Augusta, wherever, and borrow one, and not make it such a monster that it's,
I can
you
do
know.
that. I will contact Augusta and see if they've got one.
Harold?
I would assume that somebody that wanted to sell you one would have one that you could use,
Yeah, I bet.
test it. Just like going trying a Harley out.
Let's move on to the next one. The first reading on general assistance ordinance.
Appendix A and Appendix B and Appendix C has been changed. Appendix B is food maximums, that's increased. Appendix C is general assistance housing maximums, and that's also been increased. You have copies of new schedules.
Adam, thank you for coming. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, nice meeting you.
Thank you, Adam.
Mike, if I could just take a second.
Chief.
I just wanted to apologize for being late. I thought he was gonna meet me up there, so we were waiting for him up there. Apparently he was here, so we missed the whole thing. He was first on the agenda, so.
Had to
Anyway,
find good help.
he's a good guy. I think we're all gonna like him.
Don't let it happen
Gary
again.
told you, but again, I apologize for
No, don't
being
worry.
late because we were waiting for him up there. Have a great night.
He made it
Thank
anyway.
you, Chief.
Is there anything else that?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd make a motion to accept this as the first reading of this proposed amendment.
Second motion.
Move second, all in favor. Thank you. Moving on. Managers report.
First thing I want to advise you of is we've been contacted by the USDA Rural Development Office. They're coming on November 12th for a compliance check. It's a tri-annual compliance check. It's the first one that we've had since we've obtained a loan for the septic system or the sewer system upgrade. They've given us quite a list of things that we have to do. I believe that between the help of Jan and Chief Coughlin that we've covered our bases. We've had to do an American Disabilities Act self-evaluation, which Chief Coughlin did. That was a 2-day process. Gave us a lot of information. Jan has contacted the internet group that, or has changed our web page to include some verbiage at the footer. All of our correspondence as far as our letterheads had to be changed and had to have some additions made onto it, and she took care of that. Thank you. I think we're covered. We got some new signage in the town office to cover our bases as far as that inspection goes. So that's done.
Thank you.
The next thing that I have on the manager's report is I've been contacted by Brad Jackson. He's the executive director, as most of you know, from KRDA. He is exploring the possibility of expanding First Park's TIF from 20 to 30 years. So we're in the first stages of that. You're going to be hearing more about that. I just want to give you a heads up. That's the direction he may be taking that. The next item is, I'm sorry.
Do you have any idea what effect that would have on us to change that, add 10 years to that? Or?
Well, we're going to have to do it because First Park is the TIF district that sets in the town of Oakland.
Yeah.
And it's going to be my responsibility to help take care of that. As far as the effect that it will have on us, I don't think it's going to have any. What he wants to do is a sales promotion for any other businesses coming into town and wanting to set up there, because he'd like to be able to show them that the TIF is now for another 15 years instead of just another 5 years.
Sure.
And so he's going to use that as a tool. I personally, after talking with him, don't think it's going to be much of an issue, but ultimately it's going to be up to you to make that decision.
I I think it'd be nice to get the opinion of our TIF lawyer, that went over the last TIF, just to see if it would cost the taxpayers of Oakland money.
We did discuss the finances, and I sat down with him and asked him what his expectations were, Mr. Jackson, and they will assume full financial burden as far as increasing the TIF. They're gonna benefit from it, so therefore they're not gonna expect the taxpayers of Oakland to cover that cost. Or are they gonna expect the 24 communities who are involved in that project to cover that cost? And that came directly from him. Nothing's in writing, but this is just during conversation.
Will they have a written summary, financial summary of what the actual effect of that would be, so we could review it? And I think part of Mark's question was, prior to the finalization, to share the information with a person, and whether it's at their expense or our expense, to find out how that, whether that is in our best interest, and how that would also combine with support the other TIF that we just created for the sewer people. So I think it's more of a, rather than the lawyer developing it, have her react to what the implications are for us.
And I can do that. I think we're quite a ways out from getting to that point at this point. He just, he wanted to come down and make me aware that this is a path that he'd like to proceed down. And I thought it would be pertinent for me to share that information with you at this point. And we certainly will cover our bases. The next item is to advise and present the fire and rescue report for July, August, and September, the third quarter. And a couple of things that I highlighted on here was for this year-to-date, they've had 773 incidents, which is actually a 6% increase over 2013. The majority of the fire department and rescue calls, they had 199. That's represents 67.9%. Chief Coughlin highlighted a few items at the bottom that he thought was pertinent. One of them was he purchased 45 gallons of Class B foam, purchased a new 2.5-inch foam indicator and foam nozzle. These were items that were identified and budgeted for, and it prepares them for increased potential of flammable liquid and gas fires. And the other thing is he completed the MMA safety grant and purchased 3 gas meters, which is pertinent and important for them. They've covered 238 man-hours of training this quarter, which I feel is personally substantial, and they're on track on that. And it's got a list of calls on the back part of that are worth looking at. The next thing on my agenda is to advise and present the assessor's report for August and September. And, on the back page of her assessor's report, she identified the fact that Oakland's property value has actually increased for 2015, for the upcoming year of 2015, from $490 million to $499,750,000. It's an increase of 1.93%. The last thing that I have is on other business. It's something that I generated the Oakland Special Events Committee as I've been going down this path. This is actually the format that I want to use for this committee. It kind of locks it in and gives us a roadmap of how I'm going to form this. Gives us our mission statement. This thing is something that I'm trying to get rolling as quickly as possible because I'd like to see something happen as early as next summer. I'm working on getting a group of people together, but I just wanted to let you see how I was setting the organization up on this, and I think that's going to be the backbone of this committee.
Thank you.
Other than that,
Mr. Bob Nutting, thank you for coming tonight. Do you have anything?
I came as Roger Cape's bodyguard.
Oh. Yeah. And you did a good job.
But
You left
it's always good. It's always good to come and see the town council and see what a thankless job they have trying to referee fights between somebody cutting wood and somebody trying to sleep. And I don't know how you solve that problem, but I certainly appreciate your doing it and not me.
Ed,
All set,
John,
Well, I said my piece.
Bob, thank you. Good luck, Bob.
Before you leave, just
I don't think he had any complaint so much on them logging per se, as they were